I mean, the one place actually Keir Starmer hasn't been yet is China. Maybe that's on his list because he's away again. He's in Norway today promoting carbon capture technology. We're going to speak now to Jim McMahon, MP, who's Minister for Devolution. Jim, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
And what's he doing exactly in Norway, Keir Starmer? Because he's spent an awful lot of time away. He's getting quite he's been a lot criticised for that. He spent something like 159 hours and 46 minutes in the air. Why doesn't he want to stay in Britain?
I'm not sure that's quite the headline you think it is, that Prime Minister does his job. But that's very much what the Prime Minister is there to do, is about representing Britain on the world stage, is about representing British interests, and is about securing those trade and cooperation agreements around the world. And he's doing a fantastic job of doing that.
Isn't that David Lammy's job?
Our position now, compared to six... well, it's a team effort in the end. Of course, David Lammy as Foreign Secretary has a very important role to play, and he's doing a fantastic job at doing that. But Prime Minister to Prime Minister around the country is absolutely critical, and that's the work that Keir is doing. And that's about how do we reconcile our place in the world going forward. It's about Britain realising its full potential. And on the issue of energy security, this is mission critical. You know, it's one of our missions. It's central to our plan for change, about how do we have that secure homegrown energy for the UK that gives us that security and resilience in the future.
Okay, so what's he
cooperation agreements are central to that.
Jim, so what's he doing about that in Norway today? What's going to result from the agreements that he's making in Norway today that will make our energy more secure?
Well, we'll see the outcome of that later on today, but
so
this
you
is
don't
about
know.
the Prime Minister representing us on the world stage and securing those energy agreements with Norway.
Jim, you can't just come on here and spout platitudes. I'm asking you what he's doing for energy security in Britain. Are you saying you don't know?
I'm actually explaining to you what the job of a Prime Minister is, because the assertion that you made at the start of the interview was it's not his job somehow to represent Britain on the world stage.
No, it's not actually. No, his job is to fix the NHS. His job is to fix... No, his job is to fix the NHS. His job is to fix the economy. The economy is going down the gurgler thanks to the budget by Rachel Reeves, right? So why is he not here fixing that?
Which brings us on to the missions and the plan for change. Correct. The NHS does need fixing. Correct. We do need to invest in those jobs that people's living standards increase.
But Jim,
we absolutely have to get more police on the street. All those domestic issues are central to the missions. They're central to the plan for change, and that's exactly what we're driving forward.
Well, why is he in Norway?
The idea that the Prime Minister of the UK should be locked in Downing Street, marking the homework of domestic ministers, is for the birds.
Right, so you think... So where's he going?
We're cracking on, we're delivering that.
Where's he going? Where's he going? Jim, you can't just keep talking at me, Jim. You've got to answer the odd question, OK? Where's he going next, then? Why is he not here to look after what's happening in the NHS?
I've answered the question, you just don't seem to accept the answer.
Well, no, you just keep babbling on at me with the same stuff about mission statements and, you know, doing things for Britain and representing Britain around the world. British people in this country would like to see the Prime Minister in Downing Street, actually, contrary to what you may think. They'd like to see him doing things for Britain. They'd like to see him visiting different parts of this country rather than actually visiting different parts of the world.
That's exactly what the Prime Minister has done. It's always a balance between the time you spend here in Britain and on visits and on meetings here. But I would say in terms of the devolution agenda that I'm on to talk about today, it was more than symbolic that in the first 3 days of the new government, it was the mayors in Downing Street with the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister setting out the agenda for change, because the missions are important, the plan for change is important, but the how we do it is through devolution. It's about empowered mayors with combined authorities and council leaders working with their communities to make sure that we realise that change in every community. So the agenda that has been built, that the Prime Minister has been absolutely central to directing, is what we're cracking on with delivering. So it's very exciting today.
So do you think devolution has worked then?
Well, evidence says it's worked in terms of the growth that we have seen in places where they have mayors in place and combined authorities. They are
I'm talking about in Wales in Scotland. I'm talking about in Wales in Scotland, Jim. In Wales,
but devolution, devolution is a UK project, and for too long we haven't talked about English devolution anywhere near as much as we need to. And this is what this agenda is about. It's to reconcile that in the way that we're quite happy to talk about devolution in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, we haven't had the same answers for England.
But it hasn't worked,
This is long overdue.
But it hasn't worked,
this is why the devolution plan is so important.
But Jim, it hasn't worked in Scotland, has it?
Devolution has proven to work. When you look at the mayors and the way that they're performing in England, they are outstripping performance on the economy, on public services.
What's wrong with you? Can you not have a conversation with me? I'm asking you, has devolution worked in Scotland? The SNP have been in Scotland, in charge of Scotland now, for a very, very long time, right? I think you'd probably agree that they've run it into the ground. The Labour Party might get re-elected, but possibly not. But in Scotland, life is pretty bad for an awful lot of people, right? In Wales, the Welsh Labour Party have been running it, and it's not good. The Welsh, the Welsh devolution scenario means that people in Wales are worse off than people in England. People in Wales have worse outcomes in the National Health Service in Wales, and the Labour government in Wales has not been a success. So you want to make that even more prevalent in the rest of England. I'm not sure that's a good idea, is it?
The last 14 years have been wonderful in England, haven't they? People haven't seen their local public services decimated.
No, they haven't
People
been.
haven't seen housing grind to a halt. People haven't seen their local economy stagnate. People haven't seen
housing hasn't actually bounced.
In the past.
Housing hasn't
the last 14 years have been fantastic in England.
Well, hang on, Jim.
On that
Again,
basis, they haven't.
Jim, the
and so
economy,
we have to devolve.
Jim, the
we
economy,
have to create these institutions that can receive more powers.
Jim, the economy was in better shape in June than it is now, wasn't it?
The test is how people feel in the places where they live.
Was the economy not better in June?
Standards now better than they were before the last 14 years? And the answer is categorically no. People feel worse off. They feel poorer.
They do. Since Labour have got in. Yeah, since Labour got in.
And when they look to local public services, they're ridiculous. The idea that we can turn around 14 years.
So you're admitting that things are worse now?
Of a government missing action,
but you've made them worse.
In 6 months.
No, Jim.
I'm not conceding that at all.
You've made them worse. You've made them worse. Growth has gone down. Unemployment has gone up. Inflation has gone up. You know, everybody has said that Rachel Reeves's budget was bad. Nobody is saying a good word about it. You have to concede that the economy is worse now than it was in June, surely.
There's one thing about a new government. You can do nothing about your inheritance. You get what you get.
Well, you made it worse, though.
But you can absolutely do something about the decisions that you make. And the decisions, and some of them were very tough, were about reconciling that inheritance that left public services on their knees. And so when we look at the near £26 billion going into the NHS, you cannot build a strong economy if you haven't got an NHS on its feet where people are healthy and able to work. If you can't build the 1.5 million new homes. Just think about the life chances that are left behind when 150,000 children are in temporary accommodation, sometimes far away from their primary school. That means they're not attending to school. What would you say? All right, what would you say? What would you say to the parents?
So
we've got to rebuild.
All right, what would you say to the parents of children in Surrey who have had to take their children out of private schools and put them into the state school system because they can't afford the VAT that you've put on their children's education? And Surrey say that they haven't got any spaces for them, so they're going to have to bus them out of Surrey to educate them in state schools somewhere else. What would you say to them?
Well, you're spending the time talking about a handful of children, which is important to the family.
A handful, so you don't care about them.
There are choices that families will have to make in the way that there are a million.
How many children do you think are affected by it?
Where any parents who are looking to move from the private sector to the state sector can be accommodated, and we'll make sure that local
Surrey schools are full
and to support that transition where it is needed.
But the Surrey schools are full,
in the end,
Jim.
There's a million places around the
No, the Surrey schools, Jim, the Surrey schools are full. The Surrey schools are full. They haven't got any places. They're having to bus people out of Surrey to educate them. You think that's good?
And every local authority has a responsibility to make sure that there is sufficiency of school places in their area.
There aren't spaces.
If that changes, every local authority will be required to marshal and provide those in the state sector.
Your policy
government stands ready to work with local authorities.
Your policy, Jim, has caused that problem, which wouldn't have existed before.
The policies that are taking place are about getting investment in the state sector where the vast majority, over 90% of children, are educated. And just think about the number of parents who have no choice but to go to the private sector where their children might need specialist support and education provision because it isn't available in the state sector in the way that they need.
And they now having to pay
they would
VAT.
sooner not have to pay for the private sector. They expect the government to provide that in mainstream education. And that's exactly what the investment in the mainstream will do. Just this time, we're about to confirm the provisional settlement for local councils, and there's £1 billion of new money going into SEND provision into local authorities to provide that grassroots support within them.
Well, what about these
2,400? There are some difficult decisions.
What about the 2,400 children who don't have spaces to go to school where they would like to go to school in Surrey because there are no places? What about them?
Well, we can deal with individual local authorities as and when. That isn't an issue that's been flagged up with me by the council. But we stand ready to work with any council in the way that we have set out very early on. We want to work as partners in power to make sure that if there are issues, we can work through them. But by and large, the vast majority of pupils, and they will only be on the edges of this policy, we should say. This is not main kind of widespread shift from the private sector to the state sector. But around the edges, where parents do make that choice, we'll absolutely make sure that the support is there to support parents and pupils.
Right, as long as it's not in Surrey. Final question on the energy bills. You said you want energy security.
Including in Surrey.
Yes. Well, Keir Starmer said that he was going to freeze energy bills. He was going to put a cap on them. They've gone up twice since you've been in charge of the government. They're going to go up again in January. That was a lie, wasn't it?
Well, it's a statement of fact that the gas and oil prices are linked to the wholesale gas market, and that's reflected in the retail price that consumers pay. They are regulated, and the cap is the cap. But to be clear,
well,
if we don't invest in the infrastructure needed to secure, because we haven't yet seen through GB Energy's investment to rebuild our domestic capacity in that secure homegrown energy. That's exactly why it's one of the missions. It's why it's in the plan for change, because we recognise that we can't be beholden to foreign forces that don't have Britain's interest at heart, and we need to build that security of homegrown energy here in the UK.
Okay. So is GB Energy set up yet?
14 years of being asleep at the wheel, but we're on with it.
Has GB Energy been set up then?
Yeah, the stepping stones have been made. Legislation has been passed.
Who's in charge of it?
The location for the headquarters.
Who's in charge of it?
Well, Ed Miliband is the political lead for this, leading on the missions, and he's taking that on. But we need to go back to what it means for people, because we can talk about.
Well, no, I want to know about GB Energy.
But what this means.
No, I want to know about GB Energy, Jim.
We can get household bills under control.
You're talking
so people can live a decent, fulfilled life.
No.
And for the work.
Rubbish.
I'm afraid it's not. These are the realities
Ed Miliband. No, hang on. Ed Miliband said.
Not to reconcile just how hard it is for people. Working people who are doing everything that's asked of them, but they're not able to make ends meet.
Ed Miliband. All right, hang on. Let me ask you.
I've got an answer and I've got an opinion that doesn't match your own. I'm afraid it's something you have to.
No, it's not an opinion.
Accept,
all right, let me ask you this.
But my answer is the answer.
Well, the answer may be the answer, but it's not a proper answer. Ed Miliband said that we would all be saving £300 on our energy bills, right? That's not true. Even he's admitted it's not true. So that was another lie. In fact, energy bills are going up. So I want to know from you who's running GB Energy and where is it going to be? Where is it going to be set up, and what's it going to do?
Well, we need to be really clear here, and I've tried to be as clear as I can, that we cannot undo 14 years of a previous government.
That's
and the way
not
they
an
run
answer.
The country,
it's not an answer.
And the way they haven't invested. It is the answer.
What's the answer to?
Invested in those renewable, secure, homegrown energy here in the UK.
I'm asking you about GB Energy.
Take time to change that. We can't, and GB Energy will be the vehicle for that.
When?
We can't do that all in 6 months. It will take time to build that up.
When will GB Energy? All right. Well, when will GB Energy?
Part of the budget
okay. Well, let me. This is an easy question for you, Jim. When will GB Energy be up and running?
Well, Parliament has obviously passed the legislation. We are almost setting up the institutions. The investment is coming through the process, and we will begin that process. But as I say, it will take longer than 6 months to rebuild what has been 14 years.
Yeah, OK, well, can you not give me a date as to when GB News will be up and running as a going concern? GB Energy.
GB Energy?
Yeah.
Well, that'll be announced, I'm sure, by the NHS Secretary. I want to talk about devolution. I want to talk about why we're seeing a power transfer from Westminster and Whitehall to local communities in the way that we can deliver on our missions and our plan for change. Because I think your viewers will be sick and tired of feeling that they have no control over the future direction of their
sick and tired. They're sick and tired of the Labour government already.
Centre, and they want to see that a change will come. And we are building now the structures, the processes, getting the investment in place to make sure that we can achieve that. And I think when people see the benefit of that in terms of local transport,
well, that's why I'm asking you when it will be.
Building, in terms of their economy and their skills agenda, they will see the benefit of that. So there'll be a statement in the House later on today on English devolution, and we'll go into more detail about how that will be achieved. But already we can see there are 12 mayors in the country that are making a significant difference on all the issues that we care about and we know will make a difference. And the more that we embrace that, the more we get powers out of this place into local communities, the more that we can make sure that the benefit of that devolved model can be felt and experienced by every community across the country.
OK.
And that's what we're determined to do.
Great. Well, as long as you're determined, Jim, thanks very much. I don't think you answered any of my questions at all, but thank you very much for trying. Devolution Minister Jim McMahon there talking... I don't know quite what I would describe that as, to be honest. I mean, I don't think he answered any question I asked him. but he's very good at rambling on. Well, it's any wonder people hate this government. I mean, Jesus, for heaven's sake. This is Talk.